Just a little bit about us, maybe to put it in context here. So I've been around for 40 years, and we're unlike other accounting firms. We actually have that kind of a network ourselves. So inside of our office here, we don't work like a normal accounting firm does. So we have an estates and trust division. We have an M&A division, mergers, acquisitions. We have a financing division. We have the sort of compliance division, which is basically notice to readers, reviews, and audits. We have a Canadian tax division. We have a U.S. tax division. We have commodity taxes, which is like GST, PST. We have international tax, personal and corporate. And we have a wills and estates section as well. So all those things are in-house here. And unlike a lot of large firms, if someone comes in and talks to, say, Sherilyn, our estates and trust partner, she actually introduces them to other partners in the firm as opposed to just being an island unto herself. That's one big things we've seen, you mentioned it before, was that when people use an accountant or a lawyer, they'll go to a lawyer, for example. This is the thing that drives me nuts. They'll go to a lawyer and the lawyer will incorporate them. And that's it, because they need a company. And like, they haven't talked to me, they haven't talked to another accountant, and they have this corporation. Now they have this corporation, they go to a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper starts doing the bookkeeping for them. Then at the end of the year, they need to go to an accountant. So usually 16 months after they started this venture, they go to an accountant, and the accountant says like, well, you could have set up the share structure a little bit differently. Maybe you needed a family trust. You have some operations in the US. You probably should have had a US entity, not just a Canadian entity. You're selling all over Canada. You actually need an HST number. It should be registered in every province. You're into the States, you have basically a commodity tax problem in Illinois. You have a warehouse in Dallas, so you actually have Nexus, so you need to file a tax return, and you don't have any of the information. And the accounting system that you have doesn't separate any of that out. So you need to go back to day one. You need to incorporate the company properly, set up the right corporate structure, set up the right agreements with people all over the country. You need to tell your bookkeeper, you have to differentiate between each province and between each country as to how this thing is going. So we do that internally here. So every time a client comes in, one of the things we look at is like their ability to exit their business. So like our motto is like, we help somebody take their business from where it's now to sort of the next level and make it so it's truly an enterprise, so they can actually sell this thing ultimately into the market and provide them and their families with the lifestyle that they've always wanted. So to do that, we have to work as a team. So our tax team works with the accounting team, works with the M&A team to sort of get these people all ready to roll to exit their business ultimately, because it's a long-term plan. It's not a transaction thing. And most accountants or lawyers deal with an engagement as a transaction as opposed to like a motion. So this is a moving target. This is a target that lasts, a relationship that lasts for a long period of time. And we internally here share the same database on the client. So when they go to a tax lawyer, they've already talked to our tax guys. We're actually giving the tax lawyers instructions as the kind of agreements we need back, as opposed to them going to a tax lawyer, getting an agreement, coming back here, and we say, not such a great idea, because you know what, you haven't taken these things into account. Why? Because the lawyer isn't necessarily an estate planning person. It's not a compliance person. He doesn't know the difference between IFRS and ASPE. And he doesn't know anything about U.S. tax. So like all those things have to be into the agreement. So we sit here almost like a SWAT team and say, okay, what can we do for this client? So we have this RISE client service program, which takes like 11 different aspects of a client's business, and we go through them all. And one of those aspects is insurance.
Okay,
they're actually funded properly and things like that. That's why when Tammy sends somebody over here, it's sort of like she knows we're long-term thinkers. It's like, yeah, maybe you don't need insurance today, but you know what? When we build your business up to be worth $10 million and you want to exit, there's going to be a whole bunch of tax unless you set it up properly tax-wise. And ultimately, there will be a bunch of tax if you're that successful. So buy insurance now because it's cheap. Okay, get the proper corporate tax structure now because it's cheaper to do it now than it is to restructure everything later. Get the right will into place now rather than worrying about procrastinating and never actually doing it and dying and making our estate and trust department really happy because it's really messed up, right? Making lawyers happy, yeah, and the government happy because they collect all sorts of probate fees, right? So things like that. So that's what we do. That's what we've done over the last 40 years. It's sort of got into this, sort of concise team of experts that deal with basically that. So if someone walks in here with a personal tax return, they're not our client. Someone who walks in here with one truck and one paintbrush, probably not our client. Someone who has this sort of entrepreneurial quality that can actually grow their business and wants to be successful and is willing to listen to advice and take advice, um, and do things intelligently in a non self-destructive way and a non scatterbrain way and focus on business. Then we can help these people. That's our niche.
I love that you know your niche, and I love that you have put this whole thing together. In fact, anyway, so
you can do all sorts of things. Here's another plug. You can do all sorts of things, not to pay a lot of tax and not to run afoul of other countries. And one of the things we have is, like, I used to be and chairman of our international firm as well. So we do have alliances on every continent and in most major city around the world, where I just call up somebody and introduce you to them and have, or have their advisors call us and help you out there as well. So that's what we do.
Perfect. Well, you told me a little bit about who you are and what you do. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper.
A lot of what we do is education. A lot of it is education. And it's like, we'll take the time, and most firms will not take the time because they don't have the time, because they bill by the hour. And it's like, okay, if I spend 5 hours explaining this to Fred, I maybe just lost, $2,000 worth of billable time or something. It's like, we don't think that way. We think like, you know what, if we spend, a day with Fred and his team, with our team, maybe if you added up billable hours, we just gave away like $7,000 worth of billable time. But you know what we did? We built a relationship with Fred. We found out if Fred was a good fit for our team, and we found out if Fred was going to go somewhere. So if Fred's going to go nowhere, we just disengage. Send him to one of our friends, which are compliance kind of accounting firms. Then that's fine. If Fred wants to go somewhere, we've now found someone we can have a long-term relationship with. That's sort of like the dating process, right? It's sort of like, now it works. Now we all think this is a wonderful thing. Let's just go do it.
Yeah. It actually sounds better than the dating process. Trust me. The dating process is not that pleasant.
I've done it in a long time. So anyway, so we look at long-term relationships with our clients. So making an investment up front to make sure that we're always in sync. It is a great thing. One of the other big things we do is our firm that differentiates us is that most people will do their books and then bring it to their accountant 3 or 4 or 5 months after the year end. And the accountant runs around, tries to file a tax return by the 6 months, like after year end, because you got 6 months to file your tax return. What we do is 9 months into your year, so 3 months before your year end, sit down with you and your team, take a look at what your financial statements look like to make sure that our compliance team can actually file your tax returns. There's no surprises. If something's messed up, we get you to fix it. So by the end of, say your year end is December, by the end of December, everything's tickety-boo. So we can actually get everything ready in January. Like we're really quick to the draw, and we can file it. And there's no surprises. You'll actually know probably 3 months before your end of your year about what your tax bill is going to be. And you'll have strategy for like salaries and dividends, distributions out through a family trust or whatever the case is. That'll all be planned way in advance of any year-end date. And at the same meeting, we start planning for the next year in advance. So we're actually 15 months ahead of everybody else, because we're actually planning for, okay, so that's fine. Let's get that out of the way. That's accounting stuff. And let's do some tax planning stuff. Okay, that's sort of cool. Let's do some expansion stuff. That's cool. Let's talk about marketing. Let's talk about insurance. Let's talk about long-term stuff. And then what we'll do is we'll over the next 12 months after that, we'll be working on that project.
Right.
With those projects with our team of specialists in here. So that's what differentiates us. So like tax returns are sort of like, okay, do them. Financial statements, like, yeah, let's get them done. But we'll get those out of the way first, and then we concentrate on business after that.
So you're really looking at being proactive instead of reactive.
That is the word around here, proactive.